Stop scrolling. This is not content. This is a confrontation. The next 30 days will either expose you as another man who wanted change, or forge you into someone your past self would fear. There is no middle ground. Before 2026 arrives, one version of you must be buried, quietly, deliberately, without ceremony. Machiavelli never spoke about comfort. He spoke about control. And control begins the moment you decide that your excuses no longer get a vote. Right now, your mind is looking for an escape. A reason this doesn't apply to you. A justification to delay. That hesitation? That's the enemy revealing itself. Most men live their entire lives negotiating with weakness, hoping discipline will magically appear. It never does. Discipline is not found. It is enforced. These next 30 days are not about motivation, balance, or positivity. They are about subtraction. Cutting habits that numb you. Cutting people who benefit from your confusion. Cutting routines that keep you predictable. You are not here to feel good. You are here to become precise, dangerous, unshakable. Masculine stoicism is not emotional numbness. It is emotional authority. Cold power psychology is not aggression. It is restraint paired with action. You will move when you don't feel ready. You will act without applause. You will train your mind to obey commands, not moods. And you will do it in silence, because power that announces itself is still insecure. If you understand what's at stake, mark this moment. Write this in the comments like a contract with yourself. I do not negotiate with my weakness. Remember this feeling, because 30 days from now, either you changed or you prove to yourself that comfort owns you. Stay sharp. Number 1, the war against your own mind. Now the real work begins, not the kind people applaud, the kind they never see. Understand this clearly. Your greatest enemy is not other men, not circumstances, not luck, not even time. Your greatest enemy lives inside your head and speaks in your own voice. It knows exactly how to sound reasonable. It does not scream. It whispers. It says things like, rest today, you deserve this. Start tomorrow. You're already doing better than most. That voice has sabotaged more potential than failure ever could. Machiavellian power begins when you recognize this voice not as guidance, but as resistance, disguised as self-care. Over the next 30 days, you are not trying to become confident. Confidence is unreliable. You are building command. Command means you act even when every internal signal tells you to stop. Masculine stoicism is forged here, in moments where no one is watching and nothing feels rewarding. You will wake up on days where your mind feels heavy, unfocused, dull. That is not a sign to slow down. That is the signal to advance. Weak minds wait for clarity. Strong minds create it through motion. Dark psychology teaches a brutal truth. Repetition rewires identity. You are not who you think you are. You are what you repeatedly do under pressure. That is why motivation fades and discipline compounds. Every time you override hesitation, something permanent shifts. The brain learns who is in charge. Every time you obey resistance, it learns the opposite. This challenge is not about heroic effort. It is about ruthless consistency. Small actions executed daily without emotion. Training when you don't feel powerful. Working when boredom hits. Cutting distractions when comfort calls. Power is not loud, it is methodical. You must also understand silence. Silence is not passivity. Silence is a strategic withdrawal of energy. When you stop explaining yourself, people feel it. When you stop reacting, situations lose leverage over you. Most men are drained not by work, but by unnecessary emotional output. Arguments, validation seeking, mental noise. Over the next 30 days, you will conserve your energy like a strategist preparing for war. Speak less, observe more, move deliberately. The calm man always controls the frame. There will be moments when old habits resurface with force. Late nights, easy dopamine, familiar escapes. Do not dramatize this. Do not shame yourself. Simply remove the trigger and continue forward. Machiavelli understood that systems outperform willpower. You do not rely on strength of feeling, you rely on structure, same wake time, same priorities, same non-negotiables. The mind adapts when chaos is removed. As days pass, something unsettling will happen. People may feel distant. Some will test you. Some will pull for the old version of you because your discipline threatens their comfort. This is normal. Transformation creates friction. Do not explain. Do not defend. Results will speak later. Right now, invisibility is an advantage. You are not disappearing. You are consolidating power. By the end of these 30 days, you will not feel euphoric. You will feel grounded, heavy, calm, dangerous in a quiet way. That is how you know it worked. The man who no longer needs excitement has already surpassed the man who chases it. Stay focused. The mind bends before the world ever does. Number 2, the discipline that rebuilds your identity. By now, the noise has started to fade. Not outside, inside. The constant commentary, the emotional static, the urge to check, react, explain, escape. This is where most people quit without announcing it. Not because the work is hard, but because the illusions are breaking, and illusions are comfortable. Discipline is not. Discipline is cold. Discipline is repetitive. Discipline does not care how you feel about it. That is exactly why it works. Understand this clearly. Identity is not discovered. It is enforced. You do not find yourself during this challenge. You strip away everything that is not essential until what remains is solid. Machiavellian thinking was never about morality or motivation. It was about leverage, and the greatest leverage you will ever possess is authority over your own behavior. A man who cannot command himself will always be controlled by circumstances, by emotions, by other people's expectations. Power begins when obedience is internal. At this stage, your mind will attempt a new tactic. It will not beg you to stop. It will suggest optimization, comfort disguised as strategy. It will say, "You're doing well enough." It will encourage moderation, balance, flexibility. Be alert. This is not wisdom. This is retreat, wearing a smarter mask. The moment you loosen structure, the old patterns slip back in quietly. Not all at once, gradually. That is how decay works. This phase of the challenge is about tightening standards, not expanding effort. You are not trying to do more. You are doing less, but doing it perfectly. Fewer words, fewer distractions, fewer emotional reactions. Precision replaces chaos. Every action has intent. Every habit has a purpose. Anything that does not serve your direction is removed without drama. This is not deprivation. This is alignment. Masculine stoicism is often misunderstood. It is not suppression. It is filtration. You still feel anger, boredom, doubt, fatigue, but you no longer let them dictate movement. They become data, not commands. Cold power psychology operates the same way. It does not eliminate emotion. It places it in the correct position, behind action, never in front of it. You move first, feel later. This single shift changes everything. You will notice your reactions slowing down. Where you once responded immediately, you now pause. Where you once explained yourself, you now stay silent. Where you once sought reassurance, you now proceed without it. This is not arrogance. This is independence. Independence is intimidating because it cannot be manipulated. People feel it, even if they cannot name it. They sense that you are no longer negotiating for approval. That unsettles them. Your routine is your weapon now. Wake times, training, work blocks, reflection, sleep. Repetition turns effort into inevitability. When something becomes inevitable, resistance loses its power. You no longer argue with yourself about whether to act. You act because that is who you are becoming. Identity follows behavior, not the other way around. This is the truth most never accept. There will be days where progress feels invisible. No breakthroughs, no excitement, just execution. This is not stagnation. This is construction. Buildings are not impressive while they are being reinforced. Strength is quiet while it is forming. Only fragile systems need constant stimulation. Real power grows in silence. At some point during this phase, you may feel detached, less reactive, less emotional, almost distant. Do not confuse this with emptiness. This is clarity. When emotional noise drops, perception sharpens. You see people more clearly, situations more accurately, yourself more honestly. You begin to recognize patterns you were previously too distracted to notice. Who drains you? What weakens you? Where you compromise unnecessarily? Awareness like this is uncomfortable, but it is irreversible. You are also learning patience, not passive patience, but strategic patience. The kind that waits because it can, not because it must. The calm that comes from knowing you are building something real, not chasing something temporary. Most men rush because they are insecure about time. You slow down because you are no longer afraid of it. This is where self-respect quietly returns. Not the loud kind that demands recognition, but the internal kind that does not need witnesses. You start trusting yourself again, not because you feel confident, but because you do what you say you will do. Consistency rebuilds trust. Once trust is restored, discipline becomes easier. The system reinforces itself. Do not seek validation during this phase. Validation interrupts momentum. It pulls your focus outward when it should remain internal. Let people misunderstand you. Let silence speak. Results will arrive later, but they will arrive heavier and more permanent than applause ever could. By the end of this stage, you will not feel like a new man. You will feel like a man who has removed excess, lighter in mind, heavier in presence, more deliberate, less available. That is progress, that is power, and this is only the foundation. Number 3, the severing of weak attachments. Now you enter the phase most men never complete. Not because it is complex, but because it is lonely. This is where attachment is exposed. Not emotional attachment in the obvious sense, but psychological dependency. The subtle ways your identity has been tethered to people, routines, approval, and familiar environments. Machiavellian power requires separation before expansion. You cannot build authority while your energy leaks into places that no longer serve you. Every attachment has a cost. The weak never calculate it. The strategic always do. You will begin to notice how much of your behavior was shaped by external gravity. Certain people influence how you speak. Certain environments soften your discipline. Certain conversations drain your focus. This is not coincidence. Influence is invisible until you step outside of it. Dark psychology teaches that proximity shapes identity more than intention ever will. If you stay close to what weakens you, it will eventually win, quietly, patiently, without confrontation. This stage is not about dramatic exits or emotional confrontations. That would still be reactive. This is about withdrawal, strategic distance, reduced availability, shorter responses, fewer explanations. You are not cutting people off out of anger. You are stepping back out of clarity. That distinction matters. Anger keeps you emotionally tied. Clarity frees you. Some people will sense the shift before you say anything. They will feel you pulling away, not physically, but energetically. When you stop oversharing, when you stop seeking agreement, when you stop mirroring their emotions, they feel a loss of control. This may trigger guilt tactics, subtle criticism, jokes, or concern disguised as care. Do not misinterpret this as hostility. It is adjustment. People react when dynamics change. Remain calm, unmoved. You are not responsible for how others process your growth. Masculine stoicism becomes visible here. Not in silence alone, but in restraint. You no longer explain your choices. You no longer justify your discipline. You do not recruit others into your mission. Missions fail when too many people are invited too early. Power consolidates in privacy. Machiavelli understood that transformation requires insulation. Exposure invites interference. This phase also demands emotional detachment from outcomes, not apathy, but non-attachment. You act without clinging to immediate results. You train without obsessing over progress. You work without chasing praise. Detachment sharpens execution. When you are no longer emotionally invested in how fast results appear, you make better decisions. You stop rushing. You stop forcing. You let consistency do its work. There will be moments where solitude feels heavy. Not dramatic loneliness, but a quiet absence. Less noise, fewer messages, fewer distractions. This is not loss. This is space. Space is where clarity grows. Most people fear solitude because it removes external stimulation and forces self-confrontation. You no longer fear it. You use it. Solitude becomes a tool, not a punishment. You will also begin to notice a subtle shift in how others respond to you. Not admiration yet, not fear, but hesitation. People pause slightly longer before speaking. They watch more carefully. They sense boundaries that were not there before. This is not something you manufacture. It emerges naturally when you stop chasing connection and start protecting focus. Presence deepens when availability decreases. Your habits now function as anchors. They stabilize you when emotions fluctuate. When discipline becomes automatic, willpower is freed for strategy. You think more clearly. You plan further ahead. You react less. The reactive man is predictable. The predictable man is controllable. Unpredictability, when paired with discipline, creates leverage. Not chaos, precision, unpredictability. At this stage, nostalgia may surface. Memories of easier times, old routines, familiar versions of yourself. Do not romanticize them. Comfort always looks better in hindsight because it demanded nothing. Growth demands payment up front. That payment is discomfort, isolation, and uncertainty. Few are willing to pay it. That is why few ever change. You are also learning to tolerate misunderstanding. This is critical. A man who needs to be understood is easily manipulated. When you release that need, you become sovereign. Let people misread your silence. Let them project their assumptions. Truth does not need to argue. It reveals itself over time through consistency. This is where the internal shift becomes irreversible. You no longer feel pulled in 10 directions. Your energy feels concentrated, directed, calm. You are less reactive to praise and less affected by criticism. Emotional extremes flatten out. What remains is steadiness. That steadiness is intimidating because it cannot be shaken easily. Do not rush this phase. Do not seek relief from it. This is the severing, the shedding, the narrowing of focus that precedes expansion. Before power grows outward, it must first condense inward. Pressure builds strength when it is contained. By the end of this stage, you will notice something unmistakable. You are no longer available for chaos, not internally, not externally. You choose where your attention goes. You choose what deserves your energy. And that choice, quiet, disciplined, unemotional, is the beginning of real authority. The work continues. Number 4, the forging of internal authority. This is the phase where control stops being something you practice and starts becoming something you embody. Not perform, not force, embody. Authority is no longer an idea in your mind. It is a posture you carry into every decision, every silence, every action. You are no longer trying to be disciplined. You are no longer working on yourself. Those phrases belong to men who still doubt their direction. You have crossed into a different territory now. Execution without internal debate. Internal authority is forged when the mind accepts one unbreakable truth. There is no higher command than the one you give yourself. No mood outranks it. No impulse overrides it. No external opinion weakens it. This does not happen through affirmation. It happens through repetition under pressure. Every time you do what you said you would do, especially when resistance appears, you reinforce hierarchy inside your own psyche. The self that commands rises. The self that resists diminishes. Most people never experience this because they treat discipline as a temporary effort rather than a permanent structure. They rely on bursts of motivation, emotional highs, or external accountability. You have moved beyond that. Your structure no longer depends on how inspired you feel or who is watching. The system runs whether motivation shows up or not. This is where real power begins because it cannot be negotiated with. You may notice now that temptation feels different. It still exists, but it no longer feels seductive. It feels inefficient. Distractions reveal themselves as thieves of momentum rather than sources of pleasure. The appeal fades when the cost becomes obvious. This is not moral superiority. This is clarity. When the long-term consequence is fully internalized, short-term indulgence loses its grip. The mind stops arguing for what weakens it. Your attention has become sharper, not frantic, focused. You are no longer scattering energy across too many pursuits. You understand now that concentration multiplies force. Machiavelli wrote about power not as excess, but as direction. Strength without direction is wasted. Direction without strength is fragile. You are building both simultaneously. At this stage, you may experience an unfamiliar calm. Not relaxation, but steadiness. A sense that you are no longer late to your own life. That urgency that once drove anxiety has been replaced by patience. Strategic patience. You know what you are building, and you trust the process because you are executing it daily. When action aligns with intention, anxiety loses its fuel. Your self-talk has also changed. It is no longer emotional or dramatic. It is short, direct, instructional. You give yourself commands, not speeches. Do the work. Remove the distraction. Stay silent. Continue. This language matters. The mind responds to clarity. Overcomplication weakens authority. Simplicity strengthens it. You are also learning restraint at a deeper level. Not just silence in conversation, but restraint in reaction. You do not rush to correct people. You do not rush to defend your position. You let others reveal themselves through behavior while you remain observant. This is not manipulation. This is patience paired with awareness. The man who watches longer sees more. Emotionally, you feel less volatile. Highs are lower, lows are shorter. This is not numbness, this is regulation. Emotional stability is a competitive advantage in a chaotic world. While others burn energy reacting, you conserve it for execution. Calm becomes your baseline. From that baseline, power operates efficiently. You may also notice a subtle detachment from outcomes that once mattered deeply, not indifference, but reduced emotional dependency. Whether something works immediately or not no longer defines your sense of self. You evaluate, adjust, continue. This mindset is rare. Most men attach their identity to results and collapse when outcomes fluctuate. You remain intact. That alone sets you apart. Your environment begins to reflect this shift, not because you changed it dramatically, but because you stopped tolerating disorder. Physical spaces become cleaner, digital spaces quieter, schedules tighter. You remove friction wherever possible. Order externally reinforces order internally. Chaos drains authority. At times, this phase may feel uneventful. No drama, no excitement, just progress. This is where many mistake boredom for stagnation. It is not. It is stabilization. Systems feel boring once they work. The drama was never growth, it was inconsistency. Now the machine runs smoothly and smooth systems are silent. People may begin to respond differently to you. Not necessarily with praise, but with subtle adjustment. They may test boundaries less. They may listen more closely. They may feel unsure where they stand with you. This is not something you manage consciously. It is the natural response to someone who is no longer emotionally available for manipulation. You are also becoming selective with your energy. You do not engage in unnecessary debates. You do not entertain distractions disguised as opportunities. You ask fewer questions because you have clearer standards. Standards reduce decision fatigue. When standards are clear, choices become simple. This is where identity locks in. Not through declaration, but through alignment. You are becoming the man who does what needs to be done without needing to feel ready, supported, or inspired. That man is rare. That man is respected, even when he is not understood. As this phase settles, one truth becomes undeniable. Self-respect is not something you think about anymore. It is something you experience, quietly, daily, through action. And once self-respect is restored, everything else becomes negotiable, except your discipline. This is internal authority, and it cannot be taken from you because it was built, not granted. Number 5. The calm that intimidates. This is where the transformation becomes visible, not in appearance, not in status, but in presence. You carry yourself differently now, not deliberately, not performatively. It happens because your nervous system is no longer hijacked by urgency, validation, or fear. You are calm in situations that used to provoke you. You are quiet where you once over-explained. You pause where you once reacted. This calm is not softness. It is dominance without noise. Most people misunderstand calm. They associate it with passivity, detachment, or lack of ambition. That belief exists because most people have never experienced controlled intensity. Your calm is not emptiness, it is contained force, like pressure behind reinforced steel. You are not less driven, you are more precise. Every movement has intent, every decision has weight. You do not waste energy proving yourself because you are too busy becoming yourself. This phase is where emotional independence fully sets in. Praise no longer inflates you. Criticism no longer destabilizes you. Approval feels pleasant but unnecessary. Disapproval feels irrelevant. This is not arrogance. Arrogance still depends on reaction. What you are building is self-sufficiency at the psychological level. The man who does not need emotional reinforcement becomes extremely difficult to manipulate. You will notice that conflict loses its grip on you, not because you avoid it, but because you no longer internalize it. Disagreements become information, not threats. Tension becomes observable, not personal. You can sit in uncomfortable silence without rushing to fill it. You can let others speak themselves into clarity or contradiction while you remain still. Stillness unsettles people more than aggression ever could. This is also where your decision-making sharpens. When emotions stop flooding the system, judgment improves. You no longer rush choices to relieve anxiety. You no longer delay decisions out of fear. You assess, you decide, you execute, then you move on. Clean decisions create clean momentum. Indecision is mental clutter. You have removed much of it. Your standards are now internal, not reactive. You no longer measure yourself against others. Comparison fades because it becomes irrelevant. Their pace is not yours. Their values are not yours. Their approval does not fund your discipline. When you stop benchmarking yourself against external noise, focus deepens naturally. This is when progress accelerates without feeling frantic. People around you may struggle to read you now. Your emotional range has narrowed, not because you feel less, but because you express less. Expression has become intentional. This creates mystery, but not artificial mystery. Real mystery comes from restraint. When people cannot predict your reactions, they project significance onto your silence. That projection creates influence without effort. This phase also demands vigilance. Calm can be mistaken for completion. It is not. It is stability. Stability is a platform, not a destination. Do not relax your structure simply because things feel under control. Control is maintained, not achieved once. Systems require upkeep. Discipline, once loosened, does not collapse immediately. It erodes quietly. Stay alert without becoming tense. Your relationship with time has also changed. You no longer feel chased by it. Deadlines do not induce panic. Waiting does not induce restlessness. You understand now that time favors those who prepare consistently, not those who rush emotionally. You are no longer trying to catch up to life. You are building forward deliberately. There may be moments where others accuse you of being distant, cold, or different. They are not wrong. You are different. You are less accessible, less reactive, less predictable. Difference often triggers discomfort in those who rely on emotional familiarity to feel safe. This is not your burden to manage. You are not here to be palatable. You are here to be effective. Your habits now run quietly in the background. They no longer require hype or struggle. You wake, move, work, reflect, rest, over and over. This repetition is not boring, it is powerful. Repetition compounds identity. When behavior stabilizes, confidence becomes grounded rather than performative. You trust yourself because you are consistent, not because you feel unstoppable. You may also begin to feel selective about where you invest energy. You notice conversations that go nowhere, activities that drain rather than build, commitments that exist only out of obligation. You disengage without drama. Not everything deserves your attention. Attention is a finite resource. Where you place it determines who you become. This calm also reveals truth about others and about yourself. You see patterns clearly now. Who respects boundaries, who tests them, who grows when challenged, who resists when you stop carrying them emotionally. This clarity can be uncomfortable, but discomfort is preferable to illusion. Illusion keeps you stuck. Clarity sets you free. There will be moments where the old self tries to resurface, not loudly but nostalgically. Memories of emotional chaos, intensity, impulsiveness. Do not romanticize them. Chaos felt alive because it distracted you from direction. You are no longer distracted. You are aligned. Alignment feels quieter because it does not need drama to function. At this stage, your presence alone begins to influence environments, not because you dominate them, but because you are not absorbed by them. You hold your frame. Others adjust. This is subtle power, the kind that does not announce itself, the kind that endures. You are not finished, but you are no longer fragile. Your foundation is stable. Your mind is disciplined. Your emotions are regulated. Your actions are deliberate. This calm is not the end of the challenge. It is the weapon you will carry into the final phases. Number 6. The moment you outgrow your old self. This is the phase where separation becomes undeniable. Not dramatic, not emotional, just factual. You begin to realize that the version of you who started this challenge would no longer survive inside the structure you now live by. The old habits would suffocate here, the old excuses would sound childish, the old emotional reactions would feel inefficient, even embarrassing. This is not arrogance, this is distance. Growth creates distance, and distance creates clarity. You are no longer motivated by escape. You are not running from pain, insecurity, or failure anymore. Those forces used to drive you. Now they have no leverage. You are moving toward construction, toward refinement, toward mastery. This shift is critical. Men who are driven only by pain eventually collapse when the pain fades. Men driven by structure continue long after emotions change. You are now in the second category. At this stage, the mind tests you differently. It no longer screams resistance. It presents nostalgia. It asks subtle questions. Wasn't life easier before? Why so serious? Do you really need all this discipline? These thoughts are not temptations. They are reflections of a past identity trying to survive. Understand this clearly. Every identity fights for relevance before it disappears. This is not a sign of regression. It is confirmation of progress. Your response must remain unemotional. You do not argue with these thoughts. You do not suppress them. You observe them and continue executing. Action starves doubt faster than logic ever could. The mind learns through evidence, and your consistency has become undeniable evidence. You will also notice something else changing, your tolerance for inefficiency. You grow impatient with wasted time, shallow conversations, repetitive drama, circular thinking. Not angrily, calmly, you simply disengage. This is a sign that your standards have risen. Higher standards always create fewer options. Fewer options create focus. Focus creates results. This is also where many men feel misunderstood, not because others are hostile, but because alignment creates isolation. When your priorities shift, fewer people can relate. That is natural. You are no longer operating on the same frequency. Do not resent this. Do not explain it. Shared direction matters more than shared history. Loyalty to the past is often betrayal of the future. Your sense of urgency has matured. You still value time, but you no longer rush emotionally. You understand now that haste creates mistakes, and mistakes create delay. Precision saves time in the long run. You plan before you act. You act without hesitation once the plan is set. This balance separates amateurs from strategists. You may also notice that fear feels different now. It still exists, but it no longer paralyzes. It sharpens. Fear becomes a signal to prepare, not retreat. You no longer confuse fear with incapability. You understand that fear appears whenever you are operating near the edge of growth. You stay there deliberately. Your internal dialogue has simplified further. There is less analysis, less rumination, less internal noise. You do not need to convince yourself anymore. Decisions feel cleaner, simpler. When complexity appears, you break it down methodically instead of emotionally. Calm problem-solving replaces reactive thinking. This phase also reveals a deeper layer of self-respect. Not the kind tied to achievement, but the kind tied to restraint. You respect yourself because you do not abandon standards when no one is watching. You do not compromise structure for temporary relief. This creates an internal solidity that cannot be shaken by external instability. You may find that your emotional range continues to narrow, not in feeling, but in expression. You choose carefully what deserves reaction. You let most things pass without engagement. This does not make you passive, it makes you selective. Selectivity is power. The man who reacts to everything is controlled by everything. There is also a noticeable shift in how you experience success. Small wins feel satisfying, but not intoxicating. You do not chase the high. You record the result and continue forward. You are no longer addicted to momentum. You are committed to process. Process outlives excitement. This is how long-term dominance is built. You will likely encounter moments where others test boundaries more directly now, not aggressively but subtly. Delayed responses, passive resistance, shifts in tone. This happens when people sense that influence has decreased. Stay neutral. Boundaries do not require explanation. Consistency enforces them naturally. At this point, you begin operating from internal validation exclusively. You know when you've executed properly. You know when you've fallen short. External opinions no longer alter your self-assessment. This is dangerous in the best way, because a man who evaluates himself honestly does not need external correction. You are also becoming comfortable with boredom. This is critical. Boredom no longer drives you to distraction. You understand now that boredom is often the space where mastery forms. Repetition without stimulation builds skill. Skill builds confidence. Confidence builds authority. There may be moments where you feel emotionally flat, not depressed, flat. Do not confuse this with failure. This is emotional neutrality. Neutrality allows clarity. It allows long-term thinking. It allows restraint. Emotional spikes are exciting, but they distort judgment. You are learning to live without distortion. You also begin seeing the long arc of your life more clearly. You are no longer fixated on immediate outcomes. You think in months, years, systems. You understand now that momentum is not built through intensity, but through sustainability. You protect your energy accordingly. This is where the old identity truly loses ground, not because you reject it, but because it no longer fits. You cannot go back, not because you forbid yourself, but because you have outgrown it. Regression would feel unnatural now. This is the point of no return. You are not finished, but you are no longer experimenting. You are operating, and the difference between those two states is everything. Number 7, the control of direction. This phase is not louder than the others. It is quieter, more deliberate. This is where you stop measuring progress by how you feel and start measuring it by trajectory. Direction matters more than speed now. You understand this instinctively. Speed without direction burns energy. Direction without discipline collapses. You are aligning both. At this point, your days feel structured without feeling rigid. There is flow, but it is controlled flow. You are not drifting. You are choosing. Every commitment is weighed. Every action has consequence. You no longer confuse being busy with being effective. Effectiveness has become your standard. If something does not move the needle, it does not earn your time. You have also learned to delay gratification without resentment. Waiting no longer frustrates you, it sharpens you. You understand that patience is not passive, it is strategic restraint. You hold back not because you are unsure, but because you are certain. Certainty allows waiting. Insecurity rushes. This is also where your thinking becomes longer range. You plan moves that will pay off months from now. You are no longer obsessed with immediate outcomes because you trust the systems you've built. Systems create inevitability. When something becomes inevitable, anxiety loses relevance. You are also beginning to recognize leverage, where small actions produce disproportionate results. You look for efficiency, you remove redundancies, you simplify processes. Complexity now irritates you, not because you lack intelligence, but because you value clarity. Clarity accelerates execution. Emotionally, you are stable to the point that it feels almost unfamiliar. Drama feels distant. Emotional chaos feels unnecessary. You are not numb, you are regulated. Regulation gives you access to power without volatility. While others burn hot and burn out, you remain steady. Steadiness wins over time. You are also more comfortable saying no to opportunities, to distractions, to people. Not aggressively, calmly. No explanation, no justification, just no. Each no protects a deeper yes. This is not selfishness. This is stewardship of energy. Energy is finite. Power respects limits. You will notice that your presence now creates contrast. In loud environments, you stand out by being quiet. In reactive spaces, you stand out by being composed. In chaotic moments, you stand out by being grounded. Contrast draws attention without effort. Influence follows naturally. You are also learning to operate without emotional momentum. You no longer need to feel on fire to execute. Fire is unstable. You are running on something more reliable. Commitment. Commitment does not fluctuate with mood. It persists through boredom, fatigue, and doubt. This is why it outlasts talent. Your relationship with fear has matured further. Fear no longer signals danger. It signals relevance. When fear appears, you prepare, you refine, you move forward anyway. You do not confuse discomfort with incapability. That confusion keeps men small. You have outgrown it. At this stage, you may notice fewer internal conversations, less overthinking, less mental noise. Decisions feel simpler because standards are clear. You do not debate values. You apply them. You do not ask who you want to be. You act as who you have chosen to become. You are also more aware of second-order consequences, not just what an action does now, but what it enables later. This awareness changes everything. You stop making choices that feel good but cost you momentum. You choose options that compound quietly. Compounding is invisible at first. Then it becomes unstoppable. Your discipline has now reached a point where it protects you from yourself. Even on off days, the system holds. Even when motivation dips, execution continues. This is what most people never build, a structure that functions without emotional input. This structure is your advantage. You may also find that your tolerance for nonsense has dropped sharply, not with anger, with indifference. You no longer engage in arguments that go nowhere. You no longer entertain narratives that weaken agency. You disengage quickly and move on. Attention is no longer free. This phase also reveals how rare self-control actually is. You see it everywhere. Impulsive speech, emotional reactions, compulsive habits, scattered focus. You recognize these patterns without judgment. You simply do not participate. Observation without participation is power. You are also learning when to act decisively. Calm does not mean hesitation. When action is required, you move without drama. You do not seek consensus. You do not wait for perfect conditions. You execute cleanly and accept responsibility for the outcome. Responsibility sharpens authority. There is also a deeper internal silence forming now. Not emptiness, stillness. A sense that you are no longer chasing alignment because you are aligned. This stillness allows creativity, strategy, and foresight to emerge naturally. When the mind is quiet, it sees further. You may notice fewer emotional spikes tied to success or failure. Wins do not inflate you. Losses do not crush you. You extract lessons and continue. This emotional neutrality allows consistent performance. Consistency is rare. That rarity creates separation. Your body language may have changed without you noticing. Slower movements, fewer unnecessary gestures, more eye contact, less fidgeting. The body reflects the mind. When the mind stabilizes, the body follows. Presence deepens. You are also beginning to trust your judgment deeply. Not blindly, but confidently. You know you will evaluate outcomes honestly and adjust accordingly. This trust removes hesitation. Hesitation is costly. Decisiveness, even when imperfect, builds momentum. At this point, the challenge has shifted from becoming disciplined to maintaining direction. Discipline is no longer the question. Direction is. You ask better questions now. Does this align? Does this compound? Does this dilute focus? These questions filter choices automatically. You are not finished, but you are no longer vulnerable to drift. Drift happens when direction is unclear. Yours is not. You have chosen it. You are reinforcing it daily, and that makes all the difference. Number 8, the final internal shift. This is the stage where everything slows down internally, even as momentum continues externally. You are no longer climbing out of weakness. You are no longer proving discipline to yourself. You are refining alignment. The difference is subtle but decisive. Earlier phases were about removal, control, and stabilization. This phase is about calibration. Small adjustments, precise decisions, quiet corrections that only someone deeply self-aware would even notice. You now recognize that strength is not the absence of struggle. It is the absence of confusion. You know what you are doing. You know why you are doing it. You know what does not belong in your life anymore. That clarity creates a calm confidence that does not need expression. You do not talk about direction. You move in it. At this point, the mind no longer resists discipline. It expects it. When structure becomes expected, identity locks in. You do not wake up asking whether you will execute. You wake up knowing you will. The question has shifted from "will I do this?" to "how precisely will I do this today?" Precision replaces effort. This is where mastery begins to form. You also notice that external pressure affects you less than it ever has. Deadlines do not rush you. Opinions do not bend you. Urgency does not hijack your nervous system. This does not make you slow. It makes you accurate. Accuracy compounds faster than speed over time. Most people rush because they are afraid of falling behind. You no longer feel behind. You are exactly where your structure has placed you. There is also a deeper emotional honesty developing now. Not emotional expression, honesty. You can recognize when something drains you without dramatizing it. You can admit when something no longer aligns without guilt. You can accept discomfort without assigning meaning to it. This emotional maturity is rare. Most people react before they understand. You understand before you act. Your standards have become internal law. You do not negotiate them depending on mood, environment, or company. This consistency creates self-trust. Self-trust removes internal friction. When internal friction disappears, energy becomes available for creation instead of self-management. That is when output increases without burnout. You are also more selective with ambition itself. You no longer chase goals simply because they look impressive. You evaluate whether they are worth the cost. Time, focus, peace, energy. Not everything that looks like progress is progress. Discernment becomes your edge. This phase also reveals how little you need to feel in control of yourself. You are not tense. You are not rigid. You are flexible within structure. When unexpected events occur, you adapt without panic. When plans shift, you recalibrate instead of collapsing. Resilience is no longer an idea, it is behavior. You may also notice that your emotional reactions to other people's chaos have almost disappeared. Where others panic, complain, or spiral, you observe. You may even feel slightly detached, not superior, just separate. You understand now that most emotional chaos is optional. Participation is a choice. You are choosing not to participate. Your thinking has also become quieter. Fewer loops, less mental replay, less internal commentary. Silence inside the mind creates space. In that space, insight appears. Not dramatic insight, practical insight. Clear next steps, subtle corrections, strategic patience. You trust these signals because they come from stillness, not impulse. At this stage, temptation changes form again. It no longer offers pleasure, it offers identity regression. Familiar roles, familiar behaviors, familiar versions of yourself. The temptation is not indulgence, it is comfort in being known. You see through it immediately. Familiarity is not safety. Familiarity is stagnation. You are also aware now that power does not come from dominance over others. It comes from non-dependence. The less you need from people emotionally, the more freely you move. The less you seek approval, the more decisive you become. This is not isolation, it is autonomy. You may notice that you speak less overall, not because you are withdrawn, but because words have become expensive. You do not waste them. When you speak, it is intentional. When you remain silent, it is comfortable. Silence is no longer a gap to fill. It is a position you hold. This phase also sharpens your awareness of consequences. You see how small lapses ripple outward. You also see how small, disciplined actions compound quietly. This awareness keeps you steady. You are not tempted by shortcuts because you understand their hidden cost. You are not discouraged by slow progress because you understand compounding. You are also no longer attached to the idea of being done. Completion no longer excites you, continuation does. You understand now that identity is maintained, not achieved. There is no finish line where discipline becomes optional. There is only refinement, maintenance, and expansion. Emotionally, you may feel less intensity than before. This is not loss, it is control. Intensity is replaced by depth. Depth outlasts intensity. You are not chasing highs, you are building capacity. Capacity allows sustained output without collapse. You are also beginning to feel grounded in a way that does not depend on circumstance. Whether the day goes well or poorly, your baseline remains steady. This steadiness is your real advantage. While others swing emotionally, you remain centered. That center allows long-term thinking. This is where respect, real respect, starts to form internally. Not because you are impressed with yourself, but because you are reliable. You do what you say you will do. You do not abandon structure when no one is watching. Reliability builds authority. Authority builds presence. You are not loud about this transformation. You are not announcing it. You are living it. Quietly, relentlessly. The external world may not fully reflect the internal shift yet. That does not concern you. You understand now that inner alignment always precedes outer change. This is the final internal adjustment before the cycle completes. The final recalibration before you step forward with a fully integrated mindset. You are no longer becoming disciplined. You are no longer shedding weakness. You are operating from alignment. Number 9, the man who moves without announcement. This is where the cycle closes, not with noise, not with celebration, but with integration. Nothing dramatic happens here. No emotional surge, no final revelation, just a quiet certainty that the man you were is no longer accessible, not forbidden, obsolete. You do not need to remind yourself of discipline anymore. You live inside it. It has fused with how you think, how you decide, how you move through the world. You are no longer counting days. Counting was necessary at the beginning because the old self needed structure to survive the transition. Now structure lives inside you. Time is no longer something you endure or race against. It is something you use, deliberately, calmly, without urgency. This is the stage where action becomes automatic. You do not hype yourself up. You do not wait for the right emotional temperature. You see what needs to be done and you do it cleanly, without friction, without negotiation. The absence of internal resistance is the clearest sign of mastery. When effort feels quiet, power is present. You also understand now that real strength does not announce itself. It does not posture. It does not demand recognition. It operates. Loud transformation is for those still seeking confirmation. Silent transformation is for those who already know. You are no longer trying to convince yourself or anyone else of who you are becoming. You are simply acting from that place. Your relationship with the future has changed. You no longer fantasize about it. You prepare for it. Preparation is grounded. Fantasies are emotional. You have replaced imagination with execution. The future no longer feels abstract because your daily behavior is already aligned with it. You are living in advance of the version you intend to become. You are also aware now that discipline is not restrictive. It is freeing. The more consistent your structure, the fewer decisions drain you. The fewer decisions drain you, the more energy remains for strategy, creativity, and long-term thinking. Freedom does not come from endless options. It comes from clear priorities. There is also a deeper acceptance here. Acceptance of effort. Acceptance of solitude. Acceptance of responsibility. You are no longer waiting for life to feel easier. You have stopped expecting fairness, motivation, or perfect conditions. You work with reality as it is. That realism is not pessimism, it is leverage. You move differently through social spaces now. Not dominant, not submissive, grounded. You are present without being invasive, quiet without being withdrawn. People sense this balance instinctively. You no longer try to manage impressions. You allow consistency to speak over time. Emotionally, you are stable enough to handle both success and setback without losing posture. Wins do not inflate you. Losses do not derail you. You assess, adjust, continue. This is the mindset of someone who understands that identity is not tied to outcome, but to response. You also recognize now that growth is not linear. There will be future plateaus, future resistance, future recalibration. But you are no longer afraid of those phases. You have proven to yourself that you can rebuild structure when needed. That knowledge creates unshakable confidence, not emotional confidence, but procedural confidence. You trust your process because you built it. You trust your judgment because you refined it. You trust your resilience because you tested it repeatedly. This trust is internal. It does not depend on reassurance. It does not require witnesses. You have also learned the most important Machiavellian truth of all. Power is not about control over others. It is about non-reactivity to them. When nothing external dictates your internal state, you are free to choose your response. Choice is the highest form of power. As you move forward, you do not seek to inspire. You do not seek to dominate. You do not seek to explain. You execute quietly, relentlessly, with restraint, with patience, with precision. This is how real momentum is built. Slowly at first, then all at once. The challenge is complete, but the path is not finished. It never is. That is not a flaw. That is the point. You are no longer chasing transformation. You are maintaining alignment, and alignment, once achieved, becomes the foundation for everything that comes next.